Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Foam Stamps 101. Today we are going to make one of my favorite stamps to make, corner stamps. And a long time ago I used to watch a craft shopping network, and there was a lady on there who used to say, corners aren't just for corners. And that is the truth. You can do so many things with a corner if it's an equally matched corner. So I am going to show you, you can make a corner that you can stamp on the corner of your journals or your whatever you're making. And you can make it in any design. But if you make them matched where the sides are equal and your spacing on your long side, your spacing is equal, and I'll explain that in a little bit. If you make them the right way, then you can line them up so that you can make borders. Like this is the same corner stamp 4 times. And you could just continue and continue and continue and have a border. You can use them to make roofs where the patterns match. You can use them to make large squares like this. And this is only 2, which would be the same square as this. But you could also do 4. And I folded this one because I did 4 on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at the center. Isn't that pretty? And so if it was just 4, these 2 would not be here. But those can be there. Looking at it this way, it looks kind of like a house. So there are so many ways that you can use these, and they are so fun to make. And so I'm going to teach you how to make them so that your patterns will line up, so that you can stamp them in long lengths, you can stamp them in squares, you can stamp them in triangles, however you want to do it. So, and then also I have one other really cool thing to show you right now, because I was very surprised. I was going to get to this last week, right after I did the other one, and things came up and I couldn't get to doing this video, but I had put aside our stamp pad and I thought I was going to use it that afternoon, and I didn't. It has been 8 days. So this morning I took it out thinking it's probably going to be ruined. I don't know if I'll even be able to wash it, and it is still damp, and I'm going to show you what I did to it because it still works. And it's been 8 days. Now, I'm not necessarily going to recommend that you're going to want to do this all the time, but just so that you know, it does last longer than just till the afternoon if you wrap it up. What I did was I took saran wrap, and I just put a piece on my counter, and then I laid my paint side down on the saran wrap. I thought I would have enough to cover the whole thing, and it wasn't. So I just folded it up like that, and it wasn't enough to cover the whole thing. So then I thought, well, I have like Ziploc baggies that'll fit into, so I had to fold it in half, which also then it sealed it up like this, you know, by folding it in half where that plastic touched itself. That probably helped. And then I stuck it in a Ziploc baggie and then kind of squished all of the air out as best as I could. You can also, I just kind of squished the air out and then sealed it so that it didn't have too much air in there. And also you could put a straw. You seal the whole thing except for one little corner. And then you could put a straw right there and then kind of pinch up to the straw, suck on the straw, and it will really suck this tight, like vacuum tight. And then just pull the straw out and quick close it, like at the same time. And that helps really get the air out. I didn't have a straw, so I didn't do that. But so that's how I stored this. And look, it still works. So I am really impressed with that because I didn't know that it would last that long. I do believe that I spritzed this with a spritz of water, and that was just from just this spray bottle, and it's very much of a mist, and I just went mist. I did not put a whole bunch of water or anything on there because I didn't want to water my paint down. I was going to use it that afternoon. So but yeah, I want to just show you how well this works, and I'm going to show you how we're going to line this up. Now I've lined up. The first thing that you're going to start with is you're going to have a square, and it needs to be square. So I find an easy way for me to do it, and this is the size of these corners, is I take my ruler and I just go this way and cut it on both sides, and then I turn it and I line it up really straight on this edge so that I know that I'm square. Like, I just make sure that I have the side, and even though I have a rounded corner here, so I can't really line up the corner, I can line up both of these sides after I've cut it. And then I will cut the side that's left. So I just cut a long length like this, and then this one I've already glued to some cardboard. I just do this, cut the whole thing. Then I just turn it and make sure that this side and this side are lined up with both sides, like that. Line it up really, really well, and then go ahead and cut here. So that is how I make sure that I get a square. Now, my larger one, I did go ahead and I measured. I used my cutting board, and I put my fun foam on here, and I did 4 inches and cut it, and then I did it again and I did 4 inches and cut it this way so that I had a 4x4 square. And then I glued that to this one. I did not glue to the paper, to the cardboard yet. This one, I went ahead and I did all of my dents, and then I glued it to the cardboard. I do find that, like, and we're going to see how this one works, because it seems like it might work better once it's already glued down, to not kind of get wide mashy spots at the very edges. Like, it kind of really pushes down when it's not supported with the cardboard on the back. That's my thought. So it may be better to just have it on the cardboard first, glued down and nice and solid. So, but you're going to have, because you've got your square, and your square is 4 inches by 4 inches, and it can be anything. These are, I think, these are like 1 3/8 inches or something. They're not even 1 inch or 2 inches. This is 1 inch and 3/8. So, like, and that's just because that's how wide this ruler was. If my ruler was 1 inch, I could have a 1 inch by 1 inch square. So it doesn't matter what size your square is, so long as it's a real square with good square corners. Okay. And so you're going to have 4 inches by 4 inches. When you cut on the diagonal, the diagonal is going to be longer than 4 inches. So this one is 4 inches by 4 inches. And then the diagonal is 5.5. No, 5 3/4. So your diagonal is going to be a different length than your sides. Now, you could make a triangle that has equal sides. I'm not so sure. That would not necessarily work the same way, but you could try that and see how that works out. It would not use like 2 pieces to make a square if all 3 sides were the same, I believe. So anyways, we're going to make a square, and then once it's made, we're just going to take our ruler and our X-Acto knife, and we are just going to cut it from point to point really carefully. The one thing with this is you are going to want to start out and be careful with your measurements. And normally I say, just eyeball it. This is one of those where you don't really want to eyeball it if you want to do things like this. So I'm going to take this out, and we're going to line this up, and we're going to make that a little bit longer. So I'm just going to take off the purple blue side. There we go. Okay, now, so this is long side to long side. Okay, now we're going to do side to side. And we're going to see the difference that, you know, like what that looks like. When I make these, you're never going to know exactly like how they're going to look until you get them done. There are some shapes and that type of thing. I like to make this kind of a swoosh and that, you know, and I know that if I do something kind of rounded, I can get like a flower or circle in the center of a larger square. I'm going to show you that here, how this is going to continue this little bit here. Now we're going to go side to side, and I've got little marks here, which also if you put them on the back, you'll be able to line them up better. I'm going to just kind of try and see the side. Got my corner, and you want to try and make sure that you get the edge of your foam right on the edge of your paint here so that they touch. Now the thing is that these are not going to necessarily be exactly perfect, but even if you get corners that are made this way, that are made, you know, so that their spacings are all the same, so that you could do this in their store-bought corners, if you don't line it up to where that stamp touches the paint on your paper, then you're going to have a gap, just like this. If you don't line it up exactly this way with that store-bought stamp, it's going to be off a little bit, just like this could. So the whole point is that, you know, don't look at this and think, well, if it was store-bought, it would be better, because not necessarily true. It's all about making sure that you line it up as best as you can. And there we go. So now see, we are continuing on this kind of circle here. If you can see, there's a bit of a dip here where it comes out. They're still touching, but it's because this corner is on the side, or this swoosh is on this side, and this one is in the center part. So this is more rounded than this. So that's what I'm saying. You never know exactly how it's going to look, but look at how this is coming out. I like the way that that is looking. And so that would give you, and I'm going to stamp it 2 more times. And I'm going to do that because I want to see what that center looks like when I put 4 sides together. I know what like this looks like with my 2 long sides, but I want to see the center of the sides. So now I'm going to just take the side, make sure that I kind of get my corner where the corner is, and kind of make sure that the edge of my foam touches the edge of my paint. I always like to see what this center one looks like. So there we go. It's coming around, and one more time so that you can see how it lines up. I want a little bit of blue on that center. And now I'm going to try and line up the lines here and the lines there. And I'm a little bit too far over here. This one's kind of crooked. So you're going to see what that looks like. So see here how I came overlapped right here, but you're going to notice that. Nobody else is going to notice that. See how our circle's starting to come along here? But look at our center. Isn't that awesome? And that center comes from this point. So, and it all has to do with measuring both sides equally and measuring your center from side to side. So that's what I'm going to show you now. I'm going to show you how to do that so that these things do line up this way. So let's wrap this back up and put it back in the bag, just in case I get distracted. And, you know, if I get called away or something, I don't want this to get too dried out because I didn't ruin it yet. I thought for sure I was going to have to use another piece. You get 3 pieces out of these drying racks, 3 pieces that size, but I don't like to ruin them if I can help it. So there we go. So this is what it can look like. And look, it even is a cool little wonky house. So, and the thing is, if you make the same size triangles, like I have 2 of them here, and you could think, well, I can just like put this on here and make exactly the same pattern, and then I could just put those together. Well, you could do that, but then they're exactly the same. This one will make all sides of your corner, all sides of whatever you want to make. So make another one that's a little different. But the one thing that you want to do is make sure that your measurements are in the same place, because if they are, then you could stamp these together and they're not going to look like a repeat pattern like this does. They're going to look different, but wherever they touch each other, they're going to line up together. Kind of like if you look at this one here, on one side I put a little circle and on the other side I put a little Y. So if you look at this where they line up together, the circle, it almost turns out like a little head with little feet. So I didn't mean it to turn out that way, but because they line up that way, like they're not the same. If I had done exactly the same on both sides, then it would be the same. But this makes it line up, and yet it has a little bit of a different pattern to it. So you could do a different pattern on another stamp that's exactly the same size, and you can put those together. And so long as your starting points are in exactly the same spot, they'll match up. So what I want to do is, okay, so let's say, just so that, like this is center right here. It actually is center right there. And then these are spaced to the same spot, either from the center or from the outside point on both sides. And then this one again, it's the same from the center or the outside, which it's the same. Whether you measure from the center or from the outside, you match them. So if you're going to start this one in the same spot, the one thing that you have to remember is that, I was going to say when you turn it over, it would match this side, but that's not true because you're going to turn them both over to stamp them. So it's okay that if they're, how do I want to say that? If they don't match up exactly, forget what I just said. Just forget what I said. Okay, so the way to make them work is, and I did this big one because the small ones are quicker, but the big ones will be easier for you to see. So all you need to do is I like to have a center point. You don't have to if you don't want to. You could find out where your center is and start like here and here. Not have something right in the center. That's where these two match up. But see, they don't have to match up that way. You could have one match up over, you could have this swirl over just a little bit and this swirl over here just a little bit and not have anything right in the middle. So you can do it however you want, so long as you make it the same on both sides. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to put it right up here. And I'm going to say that this is, it's 5 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. Okay, and that makes a difference because the 3/4 I can't divide in half. Personally, in my head it's 6 eighths. So half of 5 is 2 1/2. So here's 2 1/2, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. So we're going to go 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's 2 1/2 and 3 eighths. Okay, you just need to find your center, whatever that is, and that's your center. So then you can say, okay, how many more things do you want coming off of the side? Here I have 2. But let's do one at, put that right back on there. Put it right back where it belongs. And really that doesn't matter because I'm going to measure from each end. So, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start right here and I'm going to come in and I'm going to go 1/2 inch. And 1 inch and 2 inches. Okay, so now I have to do exactly the same thing over here. So I'm going to line this up. And I'm going to make a mark at a 1/2 inch from the corner, 1 inch from the corner, and was that 2 inches? Yeah. So from the corner, 2 inches. Okay, so now these 2 marks are exactly the same from the corner. Then these 2 marks are exactly the same from the corner. These are exactly the same from the corner, and this is your center. Now you're going to do the same thing on both sides, but the thing is with the sides, if you want them to match up in the square patterns, you have to make sure that both sides are the same, not just this side from point to point, but you have to make sure that this side mirrors this side. So I'm going to go ahead and I decide what kind of a design I'm going to do later. Like, I don't usually design that first. First, I just put these are very light marks. They're really not dense. So just so that I know where I'm going to start making a design. So this one, I'm going to say I'm going to make a design at 2. I'm going to make a design at 1, 2, 3, and 3.5. Okay. So that's 1 inch from this outside corner, not from here, from here. So that's this point over here in order for it to be a mirror. So you need to come in 1 inch, 1 inch. So from the outside corner, I did 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And a 1/2 inch. So now these, if I stamp this on a paper, and then I stamp this on the paper next to it, they're going to line up. Now you can do whatever you like. I like to kind of make this center part, and I think I'm actually going to put a little 1/4 inch mark here too, because I like that inside circle to be just a little bit, because, you know, it winds up being much bigger when you stamp it. This is a 1/4 inch from here to here, but then it'll be a 1/4 inch from here to here, you know, so it'll be a bigger circle than what it looks like. So I like to, now I know that this is where my edge has to be, right here. So to start with, for the center, I'm just going to make a little 1/4 circle. And I'm doing this with the black pen because so you can see it. But if you have something that will make the dents in your foam that don't have ink on it, then that ink will not get on your project. It doesn't too much with paint, but if you use something like a StazOn or something, it will grab this ink from here and put it on your project. So a lot of the different inks will do that. So now I could maybe take this and kind of, and these they don't have to be exact. They have to start in the same place. But they don't have to do, this does not, how do I want to say that? I like to make them kind of mirror in what they're doing. But, like, this may be a little bit, let me see, I think it's this one. Yeah. See, I started to do this, and this is off center. It doesn't matter that it's off center. You can see here that it comes up here, and this comes up here. That's okay. So it doesn't have to be totally exact. It just has to start in the same place here. And this one could be a squiggly line, and this one could be polka dots. Let's even do that. So, but just so long as they start at the same place on the edge, because that's the only place they line up. Whatever else happens in the middle does not have to be matchy-matchy. So let's make this one not matchy-matchy. So I'm going to, I want it to start right here, and since I've already drawn these lines, I'm going to do like this to make sure I'm at that point and at this point right here, because these two are the same. Now this one, I'm going to just put some dots. And you want to make sure that they're a dent, so give them a good wiggle to make sure that they dent that foam. And then this one, I am going to just, And the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of draw it. And then I'm going to start going over it a little heavier and heavier. You don't want to rip the fun foam. So you want to kind of press a little bit, then a little bit harder, until you feel like you're pressed all the way kind of to the bottom. And if you're doing this without it being glued to your cardboard already, you actually could draw these lines enough that they will cut your fun foam. So you want to be careful about that. Okay, now those are not the same. So this one, I want it to start here and go that way. But see, it's starting in the same point as this one. This one is going to start here so that they line up. And again, a little harder to get that starting point. And then I think that this one, I'm going to give it just a little bit of a curve. And then I'm going to give it the dots. 1. And I'm going to put a dash right here, because I don't want that space to be empty. Now, I don't want to put that dash here and come off the edge. And if I do come off the edge, then I want to measure to it and make another mark exactly on the edge on the other side. That's the only thing. Wherever you come off the edge, that's the only thing that needs to match. So this one came in and did dots like that. And so I'm going to make this one come in. And I'm going to give it a bit of a swirly. Like that. And maybe kind of put a bit of a flower. At the end. Whoops. All right, so we'll see how that looks. And the thing is, you can always go in and put more marks if you don't like the way it looks later. You really can't take them away, but you can do something to change it. So I like to do this one. So I am going to just do that. And then take up this space with one more. Now remember, now you have to push them down. Just because you've drawn it there doesn't mean that it's going to make your pattern. You have to push it down. You're making a dent in your fun foam a little over and over and over by getting it deeper and deeper, which is what makes your pattern. And then we'll just put a few like polka dots or something on this so that you can see what it looks, so we can get it done a little quicker. So you can see what it looks like. And this one that I'm doing here will not match up with this one here because I put my lines in different places. You can still put them together. They just won't match up at the center, but they still wind up having kind of a cool look when you put them together. So remember, you can use these on, the corner of a journal cover. If you're doing some stationery, you can put it on the corners of the stationery. But you can also use it to build borders on your stationery or in your journals or on any piece of artwork that you're working on. You can use them to stamp right in the center of everything as a square or a triangle. So there we go. Now this one I'm just going to... I know that that's my mark, and that's my mark. And now I'm just going to kind of Just a little bit of a swoosh here. Pushing it down as you go. For me, it's easier to go this way, so you don't have to go back and forth. And then I'll put a dot here, because I don't like that blank spot. And then this one, again, I want to make my mark at the outside edge to start with. And then just make any kind of a pattern that you want to. Now this pattern will line up with that pattern when you put them together. So they're not the same, but they're going to start and stop in the same spot, so they will line up with each other. And then I'll just put a few little lines in here. Like that. Put a little dash on that one. And then we still have these spots to go, so again, you can make them the same or different. And this is just a really fun project. And like I said, this is one that takes a little bit of time. Because you really do want like your lines and stuff to start and stop in the same place if you're making a line up corner stamp, if you want it to line up. But once you get it, you've got it. It's going to last you forever. I'm trying to think what I want to do with this one, because I really want to take it over the corner, so I want to put a mark on both of these corners. I'm going to go with 1/4 of an inch here, which means, and then 1/4 of an inch over here. There. So I'm going to take this one and just make sure that I go from one mark to the other. And if you put 4 together, now this will give you some kind of a circle type mark in the center. And we have one more. And like I said, it's taking a while, but I just want to give you the full look at how this all works. And when you're working on the fun foam, you have to remember that the lines, where your lines are, actually is wider. What you're going to see is going to be wider than. What you see in the black. I'm going to do that one just like that, kind of like a Y. Like these are wider because not only is it pushed where it's black, but it's kind of rounded down in. So that makes it a little bit wider than what you think it may be. I'm going to put a circle here, which if this center part of the circle doesn't stay popped up enough, that will just be a whole circle. Like it will be a solid white circle on white paper. It will not have a center to it. So you kind of want to make sure when you make a circle, try and make sure that the center stays puffed up a little bit. And if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. So let's see what this one looks like. Now, the one thing that we need to do is cut close, but try not to cut your fun foam because remember, you've already got this all measured out. So you just want to be really close so that when you go to line it up, you can see exactly where the edge of your foam is so that you can line it up to what's already on the paper. And you're going to do the same thing with the little tiny stamps, with the little tiny squares. I was going to, when I first, we had some leftovers from last week, and I was going to show you how to do it on this size square. These are the squares we had left over from last week. But then I decided that the larger squares would be easier for you to see. And so, but I do love the small squares. This is kind of the size square that I normally make. I have very few really large squares because I don't really have a place to necessarily use them as much. You know, like trying to use something like this to go all the way across an edge. I would prefer my edge to be the size of this triangle versus this one. Okay, so, but also, this makes a nice mosaic. So if you want a really pretty piece of paper, we could just continue here, one here, till it runs off the edge of the page. Another one here, another one here, another one here, and then you've got this beautiful mosaic. And if it doesn't get all the way to the edge, just cut it nice and square, you know, to get your paper. You don't have to have, or other than that, or just put some paint or ink or something around the edge, or doodle a design around the edge. So, because like, see, I started in here, so it's not going to necessarily, but even if I had moved it all the way up to the corner, we would have this, but you also could just, we would have this, but if it was moved up that far, there's also that same edge here. We would just have a bigger gap down here. So that also makes a difference. But you also could take it and just take this and stamp it here and then stamp it here, you know, so that like you have just a little bit all the way around the edge to make a mosaic. That's how a mosaic looks. So let's try this one. Let's see how it looks. And so I hope if you try these, I hope that you enjoy them because I love making these. And the thing is, they're so fun to use. You know, they just come in handy to do so many different little things versus, you know, just having, you know, just doing the corner. You know, you can do so many other things. I'm going to put a handle on it. If you don't put a handle on it, then when you're trying to hold it, you get ink or paint on your hands. And then you also, when you try and push it on the paper, you wind up pushing it, touching the paper. So if you just make a handle with your masking tape, which you've seen me do this for years, but you just take it like this, hold it with both hands, push it up in the middle, hold a wing out on both sides like that. And then just push this together, put those wings on your stamp, and there you go. With the larger stamps, I always like to have two so that I can use both hands to push down with. And I'm just going to put that there. Alrighty, let's see how this one turns out. So we'll start with doing the inside edge. And when I put my paint down, I did not quite bring them together real well. So when I am getting the paint on my ink stamp, there is always a spot between the purple and the blue where it's not really got a lot of paint on it. Because even though it looks a little bit like paint on the top, there's not much paint in the sponge underneath. So I'm going to just move that up into the blue to try and get some more. Okay. Now we're going to take this, and we'll put it, I'm going to put it up here because I want to see what my center looks like. So I'm going to put this one here, and then we're going to, you don't have to press super hard. You just want to make sure that it touches everywhere. And I am doing this on a box, which it would be better on a much more solid surface. But since I am doing it on a box, I do want to make sure that the whole stamp touches the paper, because the box might be dented somewhere, so I want to push that stamp down just a little bit. But again, not hard, just kind of massage it a little bit so that we know that it's all touched. And then pick that up. So that looks pretty cool. Let's see what it looks like center to center. Now this is the one where we did them a little bit different on each side. So when we line them up, again, we're going to line that up, kind of look for our little marks. And I did not put the marks on the outside edge, but I could see one here where it came through as I was drawing it. So hopefully I lined it up well, and if not, that's okay. And like I said, even if it was store-bought, we're human, so when we're trying to line them up, they may not line up perfectly, no matter whether they're a perfect stamp or not. And there we go. Didn't get it quite close enough, actually, but isn't that fun? And see, I did have the swoosh in the middle of, I guess, here, but the swoosh was a little different than that one. So even though they're kind of the same, they're still different. And I did not quite line them up the same. This looks pretty lined up, so I am probably a little off center where I've got this mark coming out. It's not that the center's not lined up, because these are all lined up. So when I made my center mark, I didn't quite get it in the center, and see, that's going to be my difference then. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. So it does not have to be absolutely perfect, but I'm going to see what these outside ones look like also. So we are going to get some more and try and line this one up. And I kind of hold this side of the stamp up as I'm lining up this line. And then I usually try and start at the center corner and then kind of move this in if I need to, or out, but really not quite touching your paper yet. So we already know what the long side looks like when it's put together. Now we're going to see what the short sides look like. So there is our short side. And I'm not 100% sure what I think of that. So I may wind up changing some of this a little bit. And, you know, maybe a few more dots, or maybe a little swooshes or something coming out of there. I don't know. But it's not bad. But I just don't know that I really like the way that that looks. And so I can always change it later. And the other thing is, when you doodle on these, they're fun to also doodle in the white spaces. I'm going to put my center together. And yes, you can like draw on these, on the white spaces with gel pens or colored pencils. And that makes another fun look for your project. And remember, on one side we did dots and one side we did dashes. The dashes almost look like the dots. So there wasn't much of a difference there. And so that's all the stuff that as you go, that's the stuff that you kind of learn that, oh, I like doing this. Like, I really love doing these. And I don't actually even mind this kind of trailing off into dots, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it needs something else. Or maybe it needs a little gold dot with a gold gel pen there. So there we go. And we just have, we're going to put one more in there so we can see what a full square looks like. Alrighty, and line it up as best as we can. And I always think they make really cute little, like, funky houses. That's what I see a lot when I'm putting them together. So there's what our square looks like. We've got the center. We've got these little swooshes all the way around. And once you complete the whole thing, I don't mind these quite as much. So, you know, that's the whole part of it, is it's just fun seeing how it turns out when you're done. So there we go. I really honestly think that these are really fun to do, and they make great focal points for your projects. They make really nice, if you want to, let's say you want to put a picture on a piece of paper and you want some background, and then you could put the picture right there in the center. I don't really have a picture here. I have a little, like there. You could put your picture in the middle, and then you've got this nice background around it as a square, or you do the whole page that way, and it just gives it something else something else for everybody to look at. And this really does keep you busy looking at these and seeing different things. And a lot of people look and they'll see one thing, somebody will look at it and they'll see something else, another fun thing. Those looks like beans to me. So could be Jack and the Beanstalk, because there's the stalk and there's the beans. So there we go. It is a really fun project. I hope that if you make them, that you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to put your questions in the comment box. And if you like this video, if you wouldn't mind leaving a thumbs up, that would be great too. That does help the algorithm. So I'm sure you hear everybody say that, but nowadays there is so much out there that you can also like my channel and subscribe to my channel. If you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification when I do put up another video. So because sometimes it's just easy for videos or people that you liked to watch at one point in time, and then all of a sudden they get lost because there's just so much out there that you just don't get a pop-up for them anymore. So thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.